So one of the lessons that I learned back in the 1950s when I was in elementary school and was being taught by the Felician sisters, and they were teaching us grammar, one of the lessons I remember being taught was English is a language that has lots of exceptions to it. There's an exception to maybe every aspect of the principal parts of speech. And if that isn't bad enough, and I think I came to learn how true that is, and I know you did as well too. On top of that, we have certain colloquialisms, that if we don't know what the meaning of the colloquialism is, it might bring a big question mark on our faces. So I'm thinking when I first went to Green Bay and became bishop there in 2003, about a month later, I went to the eye doctors and I was waiting and wanted to know where the washroom was. And so I said to the receptionist, "Can you tell me, where's the reception?" She said, "Oh, it's out next to the bubbler." I had no idea what the heck she was talking about, and later discovered the bubbler is a water fountain, and that's what they call it in Wisconsin. I think that, there are so many expressions that, and we especially are amused by that with our Vietnamese students. They've done a beautiful job in learning the English language, but whenever we use colloquialisms, you can see the big question mark on their faces. And I wondered, especially what Locke, whom many of you came to know during the summer, would have thought if he would have been in the company of my mom, and my mom loved babies. And it never failed. When my mom picked up a baby and she would be holding the baby close to her, she would say, "I love you so much I could eat you up." And imagine, what the Vietnamese people might think about, that kind of an expression. I think it's really important for us, that whenever we take a look at Mary Magdalene, the kind of passion that my mom had for the beauty of a child is the kind of passion that Mary Magdalene really had for Jesus, and rightly so. Jesus made a major impact on her life. And so you can well imagine, unlike any of the other disciples except for John, Mary Magdalene was there at the foot of the cross with Mary, the mother of Jesus, and she saw all that happened. She saw him pour out his blood, pour out his life for all of us. And so no wonder her love for him did not die when Jesus died on the cross. And that's where we meet her now, in the day after the Sabbath, in her love for the Lord, recognizing all that he did for her. She goes to the tomb with the loving thought of being able to anoint him, to be there with him. And we know the rest of the story. She's the first one who comes upon the truth that Jesus is in fact risen from the dead. And it's interesting that when you and I listen to this particular passage that comes from the Gospel of John, we hear that Jesus makes the very strong message to her that she is not to touch him. Don't hold on to me. Don't hang on to me. What's important is that you now go and you let everybody else know what in fact has happened, that I've risen from the dead. Go and tell my disciples. Let them know the truth of what's gone on. And it's interesting that whenever we take a look at that, that's what in fact helped Mary to become the apostle to the apostles. The role of an apostle is to go forth, tell the good news about Jesus, and don't hide any excitement about doing precisely that. It's interesting that the message that Jesus gave to Mary Magdalene, Noli me tangere, don't hold on to me, is something that St. Paul speaks to as we hear the passage that Father Steve read to us this morning from his second letter to the church at Corinth. This isn't all about just you. Faith is not just about you. It's not just about your relationship with the Lord Jesus. It's about everybody else, and about going forth and letting other people know who Jesus is. We live in a challenging time for sure. And one of the things that was on the news this morning was how people are even now desecrating statues of the Lord Jesus. And that wouldn't happen if people really knew who Jesus was. And so it's up to us. It's up to us today, every day of our lives, even in the small corner of our offices or our neighborhoods. It's really imperative for us to listen to the words of Jesus spoken to Mary Magdalene. Noli me tangere, don't hold on to me as if I'm just for you. Go and let the world know who I am and what it's all about. And that message is as important today to carry forth to the world as it was on that first Easter morning, when Mary Magdalene, the first witness of the resurrection, was called to do the same. You know, we talk about colloquialisms. We began with that thought at the beginning of this reflection, and I want to end with another. One of the words that I use, and I use deliberately when we're talking about faith, is get fired up. Get fired up about Jesus. Make sure that there is the kind of passion in your soul and mind as there was a passion in the heart of Mary Magdalene. And may we get so fired up that everything that we do today might really point the way of Jesus. And how we do that? It's in the way that we speak and the way that we speak about others. It's the way in which we think about the things that are important today. It's in the ways in which we do the things that we do. And so today, on this great feast of Mary Magdalene, like her, let's get fired up for Jesus, so much so that we won't even blink an eye without going forth and letting the world know who he is.